All right, welcome back to this second attempt at the coffee lecture. I think previously I experienced really some hardware limit where Ollama, my large language models, just took up so many resources that Zoom stopped functioning. And yeah, now I welcome you to this quick introduction to Ollama. I will first go through my presentation and slides, and at the very end, I will see and try if we can run Ollama and Zoom together, and I can show you something live, but we will do that at the very end so I can go through my content. And Ollama, of course, is a product that solves a certain problem. And what is that problem? Why should you use this? Most of the chatbots, large language models that we use for easy access, they run on an external server, so they are run by somebody else. And this poses a problem, and one is a regulatory problem. So for example, here at ETH Zurich, we have rules, and they say, well, if you have strictly confidential data, you cannot put them on an external cloud. And what does this, for example, mean? This could be something like highly personal data, if you work with patient data in your research project, or if you have other type of highly confidential research data, for example, with by an agreement with a company that classifies the data as such. And if you are at ETH, then I really encourage you to have a look at this document. And if you are not at ETH, if you're in a company at another university, I'm pretty sure that you will have similar regulations too. And it's worthwhile looking at what applies to where you work and what should you do in your workplace. Yeah, so that is the big problem. And Ollama solves that in a way. So what is Ollama actually? It's a tool for running large language models on your device. So that could be your PC, that could be a laptop. It's free by default. It's partly open source because there is sort of two components. One is its core, which is open source under an MIT license. And then there is a graphical user interface that is sort of freemium. So if there you can do additional things, and then there's also a paid version of it. But the core of it is free and open source. You can use very different language models with it. That is nice. And you can also use it as a part or as a component of more complex workflows. So if you want something like retrieval augmented generation, so where you have documents, then this could be part of the software that you could use. So how do you get started with this tool? You go to ollama.com, and then it will typically recognize what operating system you are working from. And so here it even suggests a snippet of code that you could run in your PowerShell because I'm on a Windows device, or then I could just go to download. And there again, we have it available for Mac OS, we have it for Linux, we have it for Windows. So you can select, and of course, the obvious choice is already selected for me on a Windows device. And then I install this. This is already a substantial size. So that is one of the things I would say minimum you should have 16 gigabyte of RAM to run this, and then you can run smaller models. If you want bigger, then you certainly will need more RAM, or maybe even a solid GPU, but a lot of RAM definitely helps. And then if we click on the top left, there's a variety of models, and there is a bunch of them. And you also see that we have models that we could deploy in a cloud. That's not the focus here today. Then we have some that are focused on embeddings, some that are also visually geared, so that have been or have strong focus on images, or also thinking models. And there I would suggest you need a bit of Googling to figure out what is your purpose and what could apply to that. What's the best model to run. And then what we also see here, we have these numbers, 2B, 4B, 12B, and this is the number of parameters of the model. And as this gets bigger, the model takes more resources. And so if you want to run something on a device with, let's say, as a standard small device with 16 gigabyte of RAM, then I would suggest you use a 4B or a 1B model. That is typically the size. If we click on this, we also get some information here. For example, for the 4 billion parameter models is 3.3 gigabytes. So already just to load the model, you will need that. Then you will need some additional RAM memory to, for example, remember what has been going on uh, in your chat history. And in addition, of course, you also will need to load the Ollama environment, which also takes up some resources. And then we can see, well, if we take the 12 billion model, then we're already at 8 giga, and the 27 billion model, we are at 17 giga. And so that's why you need a lot of RAM to run these things. Yeah, maybe I go quickly one further. So that is what the graphical user interface looks like. If I start it up, we see a nice llama. We have here our chat box that we can interact. We can also upload a picture, for example, and have it say something about it. And then here is the model that is now currently loaded. And there's a selection where we can load different models. And you see the ones that have this icon. These models have not been downloaded yet, so you could download it, load them, and then also use them. But the list here is not as complete as the one that I just shown you on the website. But there are a bunch of models like this here. So I have also this 4 billion model, but it has these additional parameters, IT, QAT, and that makes it a more compressed model. So that means it still has 4 billion parameters, but it has somehow been compressed. So it needs less RAM, at least less resources, but this comes at a cost. It will be less precise. So there's the trade-off that you will have to make. And now I go this one slide or two back. If I want to install such a model, then I will need to enter a command in my PowerShell. And typically on the detail sites of the models, you will find these commands. So here I open the PowerShell, and then I just copy in Ollama pull Gemma and then the name of this model. And then that takes a while. It's 4 gigabyte. Now on this laptop, it for some reason took more than 20 minutes to download this. But then I can run it, and this is now then a smaller model. And I think what's also worth looking at is at the settings of Ollama, because it has this option to run models in a cloud. And of course, that's what I don't want, because I have my highly sensitive data and I want to run it on the device. And I could also expose Ollama to the network, maybe to use it internally, but I don't want that. I want to constrain it really and just say, yeah, nothing leaves this laptop, because that's what I want to use it for. And then down at the bottom, we have the option for context length. So that's the memory within the chat that you're having. And if you make this larger, that will also bloat up how much RAM Ollama needs. So that's one of the adjustments that you can make. If you think it's too slow, I would first suggest you use a smaller model, because typically you do several things after another, and then you want the model to remember what you're working on. So it's the bigger context is also saved somewhere. So maybe don't go too low here. You will save more with a smaller model. Yeah, how to use it. Here I have, for example, I made my coffee lecture card, and then I just wrote down what I wanted to summarize. And then my goal was, can I make it more concise, more condensed, bring it more to the point? And I think Ollama did a decent job at that. I saw if I compared this to a ChatGPT or to a Microsoft Copilot, there was one trade-off that it made, because on my draft I was mentioning the regulations that we have at ETH, like with the very specifics, patient data, trade secrets, and so on. And these examples were cut out in condensing it, but the rest of the content sort of was better phrased afterwards. And I think this is sort of the way to go. Now I want to summarize. You have the data on your device. You can use a large language model. It's easy to run and install, especially with all these out-of-the-box models where you don't need to go to the command line or to the PowerShell. But even then, you typically can copy the commands that you need, so you don't need to understand everything that you do there. And you can do more complex applications. I would say the models are less powerful because you don't have a huge server with quasi unlimited memory and computation power. You have probably a smaller device, and then you have to make the trade-off. You have a smaller model, you probably get worse results. And then you will need to experiment a little bit. What is maybe the largest size model that works decently, fast enough? And I've found substantial differences sometimes in these, just in this 4 billion model, the Gemma one, where I have the base version, which takes substantially longer than the quantized version, the one with the extra parameters. And with that, I come to the end, and there's a coffee lecture card with a nice llama on, and also a quick summary of what you can do. So this is part of the official logo of Ollama. I really like that. And now I also will copy this quickly in the chat. And then I want to highlight that tomorrow, the next coffee lecture, my colleague Emmanuel Meyer will be talking about Data Warrior, a tool for data analysis, which is, of course, exceptionally useful for chemistry data, because you can also visualize the molecules and look at your data. And then, yeah, you will get a quick intro to this tool. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention. And here's again the link to the coffee lecture card. Maybe now, if you have questions, feel free to unmute, then we can discuss a little bit. And then afterwards, I will try to start up Ollama, and we'll see if it runs or if we crash again. Thank you for your attention. Okay, so there doesn't seem to be any questions. Then I'll move to Ollama. And now I make sure to directly start it with the smaller model on the command line. So I just copy this in. So this is Ollama run. Before, to download, it's Ollama pull, and then the same. And now let's see if we can get it to work. Then if I open Ollama this way, I can specifically run this model, but then it will not open the graphical user interface. So I have to do that at the lower right. And you see the llama face has appeared. And then I can open it, and I should have my model ready. Okay, so I have Ollama, but now it still has. I want the smaller model to avoid issues. And then I have a quick example that I want to run. Let's see how fast that goes this time. So here I have, because I want an application that sort of needs some privacy, so I have a termination letter that is sort of not very formal and not very appropriately written. and I want to rephrase this because I need to get rid of an employee. So that's an ideal use case. Maybe I don't want to end that information to end up on some server. And so rephrase this letter and make it more appropriate. And then let's put some quotation marks, and I copy in my draft. And then we can see how fast we go. And here I also found it's yeah, it's a statistical model, as all large language models. Before this example actually ran quite fast when I tried it. Oh yeah, now we are here, but I think it took a moment longer now. And you also see the generation is slower, so that could be because I'm now running PowerPoint and Zoom in parallel, that this takes away some of the resources that might otherwise have been used for the text generation. Yeah, so you see, we are still very slow. And then we would need to evaluate the output. Yeah, I think with that, I've shown you what I wanted to show you. Maybe in one of the next series of coffee lectures, I will talk about further applications of this. For example, I mean, I could have my personal stack of documents that I sort of have referenced in this chat and sort of always ready for generation. So that's something I haven't experimented with, but I've seen that this is possible with Ollama, and I think that's certainly an interesting application. And yeah, the termination letter is slowly getting written, and we also see that we get several options. So here we have option 1, and then I also got some further comments on the overall topic of this and the recommendation I should check with HR before I send it off. So I think that's also not bad from such a model.